today's 30 Things is all about the haymaking process, what it means to me, what it involves for me, and the processes and preparations that I go through. So, those of you who haven't met me before, hello, I'm Marianne. I'm the founder of Naturally, which is a source of information for horse owners to help them to heal their horse, mind, body and soul, naturally. So, if you're watching live, let me know in the comments below and we'll have a chat, and you can ask me any questions that you like and I'll do my best to help you out, or do my best to answer them. If you're watching on replay, also let me know, put hashtag replay, and then any questions that you have, I will be keeping an eye on the comments section, so just drop your questions in there. Right, so this is the haymaking process for us. So we grow our own hay. Now, this is because I find that buying my own hay can be a little bit of a mission. So in that, I mean that I'm very particular about where my hay comes from, purely because the Major, if you've seen Meet the Major in the YouTube channel Meet the Herd series, you'll see that he is quite sensitive to hay and the chemicals that some people can use to fertilize their hay or to dry it out faster. There's so many things that can be used on hay to make it more productive for the farmer, which is fair enough, and I don't blame them for it. But he reacts to it, and being he's 39 years old, I'd like to keep him around as long as possible, and that's not easy if he's having an issue with the hay. So as soon as I was able to make my own hay, I decided to do it. So for those of you who don't know, my herd is on a Paddock Paradise track system. So that means that if you have a field, you create a border around the inside of it with some electric fencing or whatever it is you use to separate your horses from anywhere else. And they have access to around the outside of that border that you've created, and in the centre, some people just leave it. Some people let the horses in there periodically, or for example, if you have your Paddock Paradise track system up seasonally, then they will have that to keep... Explain it properly. So some people will have the Paddock Paradise track system set up that way during the spring months when the horses have trouble, more likely to get laminitis. And some people will then take it down in the winter so that the horses can eat the grass that's growing in the middle. And other people, such as myself, will leave the grass in the middle and use it for hay. Now, it does save money because a bale of hay around here costs anywhere between £3.50 to £5 per bale. And when I need about 900, that's a lot of money. A lot of money that I don't want to be forking out unless I absolutely have to. So I generally get a good, I want to say 300 to 400 bales off the 6 acres or so that we have the hay off of. And that obviously saves me a pretty penny, because it can be somewhere between, I don't know, 50p to just over £1 a bale. So it's quite a lot of money that I can save by doing that. But there is work involved, because it's quite a worry actually making your own hay. You've got to keep an eye on the weather, make sure the horses don't get in there, pull out anything that's not supposed to be there, like dock leaves, ragwort, or any other little niggly-nagglies that you don't want to find in your hay because you've got horses with issues or you've got your own personal preference. I know some people take out thistles so that they don't get that stuck in their dum-dums when they're trying to put the hay nets together. Personally, I quite like finding thistles in there because I'm like, yay, nutrition! But I'm that sort of person. There's the green witch in me coming out going, there's such variety, my land is producing so much lovely stuff. You might be different. If you are, that's fine. Same with nettles. I'm really, really happy when I find nettles in my hay. Some people not so much. So, you've also got... Yeah, you become a crazy person about the weather. You know, this time of year, you ask me what the weather's going to be on Tuesday, I'm like, yeah, I got you, girl. Whereas other times of the year, you become a little bit more neurotic. And it's this time of year when the horses are also eager to get into the hay because it does smell sweeter, because the nutrition in it is there, and also the sugars are there. I mean, Pagan, if you have followed me on, or if you joined us in the Facebook group, you'll see that Pagan actually has figured out how to take electric fence posts out of the ground without getting zapped. It's very intelligent. I'm very, very proud of her for having those sort of brains to her. But also I find it very, very annoying, because then Spring decides that it's a great idea to jump that tiny little bit that's been dropped and go for a hoolie in the middle of the fields, which means I get poop everywhere, which I really don't want to have appearing in my hay. And she obviously leaves tracks and trails through the hay as well and eats some of it. So, you know, it's just annoying. But yeah, it's something else to think about, I suppose, something else for me to worry about. And actually, because Pagan was absolutely demolishing my fences, and, you know, she was grabbing each corner and just dropping all the corners, I was like, you're going to drop all of it in a minute and then there'll be everybody in my hay, and I don't want that. I shall have no hay for the winter, and then you'll be upset with me and it's all your fault. So I just completely shut them out of all but one field. Now, my haymaking process, obviously I do keep an eye on the weather, I do keep an eye on making sure the horses are out of it for certain times of the year, but I also have to keep an eye on when I'm going to have it cut and baled and put in the barn. So my preparations truly start a month in advance. See, my brain's not functioning today. My hair's pretty though. Have you seen my hair? Yeah, it is. Distracted with my hair while my words just fall over the place. So I always start a month in advance. So once the grass has grown to a certain level, I also get the idea of at the start of July, I'm going to have to start taking down my track system. Now, the reason I do this is because I have my track system across usually about 4 fields. So all the way around outside of 4 different fields. So I start to deconstruct one part of the track at a time. Now, it's because I know that Midnight needs things done in slow progression so that it doesn't upset her. My herd have got to get used to being on a smaller track system because they're used to being able to wander across 4 fields worth of track system. So reducing them down to a single field so that their hay can be cut and the track can be deconstructed in the other fields, it's a lot to ask for them, a big shock to the system. So start a month in advance, take down field 1, they've got 3 fields to wander around. A week later, take down field 2, they've got 2 fields to wander around. 3rd week, take down track 3, they've got 1 field that they're in for all of maybe a week or so. And in that time, I'm engaging their brain by making sure that the track that they've got has got everything they need to be mentally stimulated. It's the 1 field that I've got the mound in, I've got plenty of logs in, I've got trees which I hang stuff on. So it is my most interactive field, except for the 4th one. The 4th one is also quite interactive, but the main one that I know that they're in more, or going to be stuck in as a single field track system, which they're not used to that restriction. I make it as interactive as possible to engage their brain. My herd are used to being quite natural, which means that their brain is engaged so they don't get bored. Their bodies are engaged so they don't get things like the major readers arthritis or any number of issues which arise from low movement. So this year's been slightly different because they haven't had to be restricted like they would be in some of the spring months in the past few years. I've had to do it slightly differently. Now, the reason they haven't had restrictions is because obviously COVID restrictions means there's less people, well, there haven't been people out and about, which means that I haven't had people close to where my herd are, which means because I find that really, really nerve-wracking for me to have people that I don't know trying to interact with my herd. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their intentions are. Now, they might be well-meaning, but my horses are all rescues, and whilst they may be well-meaning at that moment in time, they're not there to deal with the fallout. So they're not there to deal with the fallout if they fed my horse the wrong thing, because if you give Midnight or the Major the wrong thing, you could kill them. or the fallout of Pagan, if they've given her something that's highly sugary, she then spends the entire night with a bad tummy, which in some cases I've had her on the floor and I've had to get the vet out to her because she's had too much. Or if you look at Egypt, Egypt is a very volatile personality, and if he gets concerned or upset or something's out of the ordinary, he goes a bit loopy for a while, which means that it can mean that I get hurt or my family gets hurt when they're around him, because he becomes even more unpredictable. When he's got his everyday, he's fine. But if there's people around, they've done stuff, or, you know, he's got a bit boisterous with them and they swatted at him or something like that, you know, that sort of thing. People trying to protect their own kids by telling a horse it's naughty when actually the kid's the one that's got the thing wrong. I also don't want that interaction for them. I'm very particular about how I have them and how they're looked after, for a very specific reason, the fact that some of them have had a really, really hard life. So I'm very overprotective, which means that at certain times when I know there's going to be more people about, I do shut off part of the track, which means that I generally restrict them back to 2 fields periodically for maybe a night or a day or something like that, just so that I know that they're all right. So because we haven't had the COVID restrictions, means that I haven't had to be that neurotic. I haven't had to restrict them down to 2 fields. So actually restricting them this time round has been a lot more of an upheaval for them, especially for midnight. You know, shutting off part of the track, she's gone, what have I done? What's happening? What's going on? And it took her a day or 2 for her to settle, whereas usually you'd be like, oh, that's all right, you'll open it again soon, I'll be fine. So she's found it a little bit harder, and actually the youngsters have found it harder as well. The major's just taking it in his stride because that's who he is, but the youngsters have been a bit more worried walking up and down that fence just that little bit, and they don't walk up and down any fence unless I'm in the other field and they're excited because they think I'm going to let them in and they're going to have fun and hoolies and whatever. But they found it a lot more difficult. So I'm glad I actually did it earlier, and I've done it the way that I have this year. Now, I know that I said that Pagan was pulling up fences, so I had to restrict them. And actually them going into a single field and me being able to reinforce the electric fence that's in there has actually been really, really helpful. And yes, okay, they're a bit upset about the fact that they're stuck in one field. And yes, okay, they're a bit upset at the fact that I don't let them anywhere. And I used to be able to walk all the way over there and you make me walk around this single field. Yes, but I've made sure that they've had that interaction that I mentioned earlier with the logs and the mound and everything. They've also got what they would probably perceive as more hay, because I've got the same amount of hay that I would put up across the 4 fields in just a single field. So they're happy because they've got that there. And I've also, if you've watched the haymaking preparation series that I've got on YouTube, the one that I put up yesterday / early this morning was all about how I've helped them. So check that out to see what I've also done to help them out and get them to settle and be okay to be in that field on their own. Now, it is, I think it's about 2 acres. I wouldn't quote me on that, but it's not a single acre. But it's a small field in comparison because I've got 5 of them. But if you think about it, a track system, most people would have that anyway for that number of horses, because it's perfectly fine for them. They've got enough movement, they've got enough space to get away from each other and spend some time on their own. So technically they don't need the extra space that I give them. I give it to them because I've got it and because I find it beneficial for them. But if you don't have the 10 acres that I've got and you've just got those 2 acres, that's more than enough for the 5 that I've got. It truly is. And it's not actually causing them anything too adverse by being in there. It's not affecting their health. Okay, they move slightly less because they haven't got that far to walk to get to the hay. They haven't got as far to walk to get to the water. But they're still on the track system, which means they're still got to go round and round and round. So they're happy, they're settled, and I've been able to deconstruct the track as I've gone, which is great, and I've been able to do it within enough time in between to make midnight and the rest of the herd reasonably happy, or happy enough that I can manage what it fall at. So horses, check, tick. Next thing I gotta worry about is the actual hay itself. Now it's my responsibility to tell the person who's going to cut, bale the hay when I want it done, because it is my hay and that's my decision. I always try and get it as close to August as possible, because that's when there's lower sugars in the grass. Now, I've had it said a couple of times to me, well, you must get loads of crops off your field because my grass in my lawn grows really, really fast. And I used to think that before I actually had horse and actually had my own stuff. But it's not like that. Hay is mostly seed stems, the seeds from the top of that grass and the stems of it. Now, granted, there is some actual dry grass there, and a number of other plants that I've got, like my thistles and my dandelion leaves and nettles and things like that. So it is more than just grass, but it is mostly the seed stems. Now, the grass only goes to seed generally once a year, unless you're doing something to speed that process up. So I only usually get one crop off my fields. Now, I don't fertilise with anything other than my own horse manure because of the aforementioned issues with the major. I have been experimenting slightly with a seaweed liquid's the word, seaweed liquid, because seaweed is great for nutrition and it's also great for hoof health. Oh my god, that is a word, hoof health. Try saying that when you're drunk. So I've been experimenting with that, tinkering about with it, and they were right with it last year. I didn't get to do much to it last year, but they were reasonably happy with it, and perhaps it might be something I'll look into further in the future. It's not my area of expertise, fertilising fields, but it is something that I'd like to look into. So if I do, I'll take you on the journey with me. Watch out on the YouTube channel. I hope you're subscribed and you've clicked the little bell icon so you get a notification as soon as I post any videos. If you haven't, pop right over there, go for it, go for a look. So there's that aspect as well. I only get one crop off. Now, if I was having two crops off, I'd be probably doing one late April and then again July, August time. But that April one is probably going to be very, very sugary, which is why when it comes to sourcing hay, I'm very, very suspicious of hay that's being cut and baled by now already, because the amount of sugar that's probably in it is not great. Whereas I prefer the nutrition to be there, but the sugar's not so much. So I wait until later when the nutrients of the plant is obviously more in the seeds, because they've produced that, because that's their babies, and what is in there is just so dense to help the plant to grow that gets dispersed when the seeds get dispersed. I hope this is making sense, because I've gone for a bit of a wander. But yes, so your seeds go and they germinate, and there's quite a lot of nutrition in that seed. And that's what I want my herd to have, not to mention the dried dandelion leaves, the nettles, the thistles, the plantains, everything that's in that field, not to mention German camel. So I want them to have that nutrition without the sugars, which can turn them a bit loopy. So in having a third of my needs met by my own fields is really, really helpful for the rest of the year, because I make sure that I have hay from different sources in different areas, because different areas have different nutritional profiles. The soils are different, the minerals in the ground are different, the land is tended differently. I've got one farmer who I buy hay off of. He has cows that go through his field to fertilise, and he fertilises his field with cow manure because that's what he's got. And I've got one that does it with sheep. That's totally different fertilizer as well. And so you've got different fertilizer, different soil itself, different minerals. All those things factor into different hay nutritional profiles. So by having a variety of different hays, the nutrients get into my horses is so varied that it's great for their diet, great for their bodies, and great for them mentally as well, mentally stimulating. So say, oh, there's that hay and that hay now, I'll have some of that. Oh, I need some of that right now. So they go over to different ones. So it's great for their bodies as well. And I do find that at certain times of the year, they prefer different types of hay. Like the one that I know is just a little bit more sugary, they really, really crave it in the winter when they need that extra boost. But when the grass isn't at the moment where the grass is naturally sugary, and if they're hedge surfing, they're getting a lot of sugary bits and pieces in their body, they tend to go for my hay, which I know is nutrient dense but sugar lacking. So it's really, really interesting in that side of things as well. But obviously, this is all just the way that I do things. If you do things differently, I'd love you to let me know, because I'm really interested in how the different people do things and why they do them the way they do. I know why I do what I do, but if you've got a different reason for doing something different, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to learn. Because most of the things that I do, I've done from my own, off my own back. It's not as though somebody's told me it. So yeah, let me know. I'm really, really intrigued. So at the moment, I have abandoned my mother in the last field, in field 3, taking down electric fencing, because the person who's cutting our hay has said, rather than cutting it Monday, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, okay, I was going to take down all that electric fencing over the weekend in steady stages. I'll go outside and do it now, shall I? And bless her, I've just abandoned her, reeling in electric post and electric tape and Now in my field 3 I have physical electric tape rather than rope. If you've checked out my YouTube video about the equipment that you need for a track system, you see that I mostly use electric rope rather than electric tape. That's my own personal preference in having used both. Especially when it comes to a track system. When it comes to a track system, you end up reeling in and putting out electric on a regular basis, and it's much easier to do with rope. But in that third field, I have thick electric tape, and it's a bugger to reel in. It really is. You've got to overlap it to a certain extent, but you can't overlap it too much, else you get lumps, and it just doesn't work properly, and it just melts your brain, else you just end up with a spool which has got like this much extra on it, and it just looks weird and doesn't sit properly. So it's its own trial in itself. But if you want to know more, I'll be putting up a video on the YouTube channel all about the extra bits and pieces that we're rushing around trying to do right now that I've had to drop to come and talk to you lovely people. That will be coming out on next Wednesday, so make sure, as I say, you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. You click the little bell icon as well. If you want the little extra tidbits as well, check out the Facebook group. I'll be adding bits and pieces in there for you to see, bits that you won't find anywhere else. Also make sure that you're liking the Facebook page when I put little posts up there, so you get to see those. And also check us out on Instagram. We're naturally_Willa for virtually daily updates on the herd. And also little bits and pieces that I can't be bothered to put on Facebook. Sometimes it's just easier to put things on Instagram. It's just like picture, hashtag, done. And it goes, and people can love it, and it's just amazing. So yes, I'm on all those platforms, so make sure that you're joining us across all of those. And yeah, it's going to be a really, really busy few weeks for me, because yeah, as of tomorrow, the hay's getting cut. Which is always great fun to watch, watching these big machines going through and doing absolutely amazing work. I also go and make sure that the herd is okay and they're happy with the loud machinery in their fields, which they don't see except for once a year for a few days. So the hay is cut, and you need about a week of good weather, because the hay gets cut and then it needs to be turned on a daily or every other day basis, so that it fluffs it up and it can dry out evenly. If you just cut it and leave it, the stuff on the bottom gets damp from the earth and doesn't really dry out properly, and then you get soggy hay which goes mouldy, which nobody wants to eat mouldy hay, nobody wants to touch it either. I've got allergies, it's not good for my health. So yeah, it gets turned, and once it's all dried out properly, usually about 5 days later, 5, 6 days later, it gets baled, which is even more interesting machinery, which I absolutely love watching it chugging away and spitting out a bale, and you're like, oh yeah, I've got another one. It's so much fun just sitting there watching it, counting them, like, and this field produced that many, and this field produced that many, and it's just, yeah. We're actually going to tag off bales this year to identify which fields they've come from. So we'll know that if some of the bales aren't as good, we'll know which fields they come from, so we can know which ones to improve. So it's going to be really, really exciting for me on that point. I know it's sad for some of you people, but I find it so much fun, and it's just so interesting. I just love the topic so much of hay and nutrition and stuff like that. Not enough to go down the equine nutritionist qualified route, because I've done my book learning people to that extent. You know, I'm not quite happy to read an article or two, but I sat in front of the book and trying to learn things, trying to cram things into my already full brain. It's just, you know, it's enough. It's too much. It's done. So I think that's me for today. I hope you've enjoyed this topic. If you have, again, let me know in the comments below. And I will see you next week. I'll put a post up on Monday to let you know what my next topic will be for my next Thursday things. And as I say, keep an eye on the YouTube channel for all the interesting videos about my haymaking series. And I will see you all next week. Thank you guys. Bye.